I'm Maeve Thompson, and I'm 65 years old. I've lived quietly in Harbor Ridge, Maine, a small coastal town where the mornings smell of salt and baked bread. Life has been steady since my husband passed 4 years ago, but quiet doesn't always feel like peace. Most days I fill with small routines, baking pies for the Sunday market, sewing for neighbors, and listening to the laughter of my grandchildren whenever they come over. Those moments remind me that life still has warmth, even if it sometimes feels invisible. The morning I first noticed it, my phone buzzed with a call from my eldest son, Brandon. There was excitement in his voice, an eagerness that made my chest tighten in a way I hadn't felt in years. He talked about a family trip to Sabb Shore, a resort by the ocean. A week together, like the good old days. I remember feeling that rare flutter of anticipation, imagining laughter echoing across the pool, children splashing, the adults unwinding. I wanted to be part of it so badly that I almost didn't notice the weight of his next words. He needed me to make the reservations and cover the deposit. The thought landed softly at first, a small request, but I felt the hidden weight behind it. The person who always takes care of everything, who quietly shoulders the risk, would once again be me. And yet, I said yes. I didn't realize then that this was the moment that would change everything. It wasn't just about a vacation. It was about trust, about family, and about discovering who I really was when that trust was broken. I want you to imagine how it feels to prepare for a moment meant to bring joy, only to sense that it might carry a hidden cost. Can you feel that mix of hope and unease? That's where my story begins. Little did I know, in the next 3 weeks, every late night of baking, every careful penny saved, would build toward a moment that would not just surprise my family, but redefine how I saw myself. The call from Brandon came on a chilly Tuesday afternoon, and the sunlight falling across my kitchen counter made the steam from my coffee curl in lazy spirals. He painted a picture of a perfect family week at Sabb Shore, of children splashing in pools, of quiet dinners by the ocean, of a reunion that felt like the family I remembered from years ago. My heart swelled at the thought. For so long, I had been a guest at my own life, quietly observing conversations about careers, vacations, and milestones that didn't include me. For a moment, I imagined myself at the center, sharing laughter, stories, and the joy of being with my grandchildren in a place filled with sunlight and salt air. Then came the part that made my chest tighten. He needed me to handle the reservations, cover the deposit, and trust that the money would be reimbursed. I felt the familiar weight, the one I had carried for decades, the weight of being the one who takes care of everything, who smooths the rough edges, who quietly solves problems so others can enjoy life. My pension was only $800 a month. I had a few dollars tucked away, but not nearly enough. I sat at the kitchen table that evening, notebook in hand, calculating and recalculating, trying to make sense of how I could scrape together the $2,100 deposit. I remembered the wedding band my husband and I had worn for over 40 years, its small diamond catching the winter light as I turned it over in my fingers. It had always represented love, commitment, and shared life. That night, it also became the symbol of my resolve. I walked into Halpern's Jewelry and parted with it, knowing that it was a sacrifice I had to make for the family I loved. I sold pies at the Sunday market, cut back on every little comfort, and saved every dollar I could. Every sacrifice whispered the same promise: this was for family, for love, and for the chance to be part of the memories that had once passed me by. When the day of the trip arrived, I dressed in the light blue dress Piper had once said made me look younger. I pinned on my mother's pearls and carried my modest suitcase to the car. I remember looking at Brandon and Chelsea as we drove off, noticing how distracted they were, and feeling a small pang of unease. Only the children's laughter reminded me that there was still warmth in these moments. The journey to Sabb Shore was filled with quiet anticipation, the kind that makes your heart beat faster, not from fear, but from hope. Little did I know that the scene that awaited us at the resort would be nothing like the one I had imagined. The anticipation, the careful preparations, and the sacrifices had all been leading to a revelation I could never have expected. That moment, and what it revealed about my family, would set the stage for the choice that would redefine everything. Pulling into Sabb Shore, I felt a rush of excitement, the kind that makes your chest tighten and your hands clench the steering wheel just a little. The resort gleamed under the winter sun, fountains sparkled, and the ocean air smelled of salt and flowers. I carried the stack of key cards for our 5 family suites, each one a small victory for the sacrifices I had made over the past 3 weeks. For a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to imagine laughter echoing across the pool, the children running with abandon, and the adults relaxing without a single care. But the moment I stepped inside, that image began to unravel. The lobby was polished, pristine, and shining, but the warmth I expected was missing. The family I had hoped to share this experience with had vanished toward the elevators, leaving only Piper, my granddaughter, by my side. Her excitement was genuine, but it wasn't enough to mask the unease that prickled at my skin. As we walked through the hallways searching for our rooms, Piper hesitated and showed me her phone, revealing a group chat I wasn't meant to see. My heart sank as I scrolled through the messages, reading words that confirmed my worst fears. My children and their spouses had never intended to share this trip with me. They had planned to use me to secure the reservation and then leave me with the financial burden. I remember feeling every ounce of the effort I had poured into this trip: the wedding ring I sold, the pies I baked and sold, the quiet evenings spent counting pennies stacking up like stones in my chest. For a moment, I wanted to collapse on the marble floor and cry. But Piper's small hand on my arm reminded me that I wasn't powerless. The old Maeve, the one who would have hidden in shame or retreat, would have suffered in silence. But not this time. Not after everything. I took a deep breath and made the calls that would change everything. First, the bank to make sure no one could dispute the charges. Then the resort manager, Miguel, a calm and kind man who listened without judgment. I explained the situation and secured written confirmation that the reservations were in my name alone. Finally, I contacted a trusted lawyer, Ethan Mallister, who reassured me that what I was facing could be considered financial abuse and that I had every right to protect myself. By the time I hung up, I felt taller, steadier, ready. My hands were no longer trembling. I had drawn the lines I needed to, and for the first time, I saw the power that had always been quietly mine. That week at Sabb Shore had been meant to isolate me, to remind me of my place, but it had unwittingly set the stage for a revelation. The betrayal, instead of breaking me, had revealed the strength I had carried all along. I remember sitting on the balcony that evening, the ocean stretching endlessly beyond me, and feeling a strange calm settle in. The resort shimmered below, unaware of the quiet storm brewing in the suite I had secured. Every thought of their laughter at my expense hardened into resolve. This was the moment I would take control. The choices I made next would not just protect my dignity, they would show my family exactly who I was and that I would no longer be underestimated. Sitting on the edge of the bed in my suite, I let the ocean breeze drift through the open balcony door, carrying the faint scent of salt and flowers. The key cards lay heavy in my hand, a reminder of both my sacrifices and the opportunity before me. Every hour spent baking, saving, and counting pennies had led to this moment. I realized then that my family had underestimated me, and that misjudgment would be the very thing that gave me the upper hand. I thought about how quietly the past weeks had been spent, every detail of this trip meticulously arranged, while they remained oblivious. The irony was sharp. The very cards they thought would be mine to pay for were now tools of my authority. I remembered Piper's small hand in mine and the trust in her eyes. She was the only one who had stood by me. The reminder that the heart of family isn't always in numbers or promises. It's in loyalty, respect, and love. I made the first call to the resort manager, Miguel. I explained calmly that I was the reservation holder and needed full authority over the rooms. He listened, courteous and unshaken, and reassured me that he could ensure the reservation could not be altered without my consent. I asked for written confirmation, knowing this would be my shield against anyone attempting to dispute the charges. Next, I reached out to my lawyer, Ethan Mallister. His voice carried concern and understanding as he affirmed that my children's plan could be considered financial manipulation. He prepared documents to confirm my voluntary payment and authority over the bookings. Hearing his reassurance, I felt a strange calm settle in me. For years, I had bent to the whims of others, silencing my own needs. But now, every precaution was an act of self-respect. I spent the evening preparing for the following morning, considering every detail. At exactly 10 o'clock, the key cards for 4 of the 5 suites would be deactivated. Only mine and Piper's would remain active. A taxi would be ready to take us to a smaller, quieter hotel if they chose to leave. Every step was designed to maintain dignity while asserting boundaries. I felt a quiet thrill at the thought, not revenge for its own sake, but a reclaiming of control. I remembered all the times I had been taken for granted, the unnoticed meals, the quiet presence, the constant readiness to help. Every moment had built toward this day, and I knew that by acting calmly and decisively, I could teach my family an unforgettable lesson about respect. It wasn't about punishment. It was about showing that I would no longer accept manipulation or cruelty, even from those I loved. As night fell, I sat by the balcony with a notebook, sketching out the timing and the exact steps. Each detail mattered. The countdown in my mind to 10 o'clock was steady and precise, a rhythm that calmed me even as anticipation coursed through my veins. I thought about the feeling of finally being the one writing the story, making the choices, and holding the power that had long been assumed away from me. And so, I prepared to face the morning. The ocean stretched beyond the balcony, endless and patient, and I felt the same patience settle in me. When they realized what I had done, they would feel a mixture of shock, frustration, and perhaps shame, but most importantly, I would know I had stood up for myself in a way that was calm, deliberate, and dignified. The morning sun spilled across the balcony at exactly 10 o'clock, casting a warm light on the ocean beyond. I sipped my coffee slowly, feeling the gentle sway of anticipation rather than fear. Below me, I could see Brandon, Lucas, Chelsea, and Brooke by the pool, laughing, certain that everything was under their control. They didn't realize that the cards in my hand gave me more power than they had imagined. Every careful plan, every calculated call, every precaution I had taken was about to meet its moment. When the first messages came from Piper, my heart lifted slightly. She had quietly observed my preparations and knew exactly what needed to happen. Their panic, as the key cards failed, would be immediate, and I welcomed the calm certainty that had been growing in me for weeks. It was strange, watching the people who had thought themselves clever scramble helplessly. I felt no malice, only a quiet satisfaction that boundaries were being honored for the first time in decades. As I finally stepped from the balcony toward the lobby, my mind drifted to all the times I had been invisible, the unnoticed efforts, the constant giving, the silenced voice. Now, it was their turn to feel the weight of accountability. I imagined Brandon trying to use charm, Lucas fumbling for excuses, Chelsea and Brooke attempting to assert control. They were unprepared for calm authority, and I realized that was exactly what I needed. In the suite, I methodically presented the evidence I had collected to Piper, confirming that the reservations and payments were entirely in my name. The shock on their faces when the truth sank in was palpable. There was no shouting, no yelling, just the realization that their plan had been anticipated and preempted. For years, I had allowed them to assume I would quietly absorb disappointment and manipulation. Now, they were confronted with a quiet, unwavering strength that could not be ignored. I offered them choices with gentle firmness, either pay for their own accommodations or leave the resort. I felt no rush, no panic, just a measured patience that contrasted with their growing frustration. Seeing their expressions shift from confusion to anger, I felt a sense of justice not born of vengeance, but of self-respect. Piper, standing beside me, offered her quiet support, reminding me that this was not just about reclaiming control, but also about teaching an important lesson about integrity and respect. As the minutes passed, they realized that every plan, every expectation they had counted on, had been upended not through aggression, but through preparation, foresight, and calm authority. I thought of all the years I had put my own needs aside, and I understood that this moment was not about punishment. It was about reclaiming my dignity. Each step, from securing written confirmation with the resort to consulting with my lawyer, had been an act of protection, a declaration that I would no longer allow manipulation or betrayal to define my life. By the time the family began to gather their belongings, I felt a serene sense of relief. The ocean continued to stretch beyond the balcony, endless and patient, reflecting a peace that contrasted sharply with the panic below. Piper and I left the suite together, heading toward a smaller, more intimate hotel nearby. I felt lighter, freer, and deeply grateful for the quiet triumph that came from standing firmly for oneself. That day, I learned that true strength is calm, deliberate, and rooted in self-respect. My family may one day understand, but for now, I had created a space where dignity and trust were honored. Walking hand in hand with Piper, watching the sun reflect on the water, I felt the joy of being fully present in my own story for the first time in years. Sitting in the smaller hotel with Piper by my side, I felt a calm that I hadn't known in years. The rooms were modest, the view simple, but everything about it felt right. There was no pretense, no tension, just warmth and quiet laughter. Sharing this space with Piper reminded me that joy doesn't come from grand resorts or expensive meals. It comes from honesty, respect, and the people who truly care about you. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made over the years, the quiet giving, the effort to smooth over conflicts, the assumption that love meant saying yes to everything. This experience taught me that boundaries are not walls to keep people out. They are doors that allow respect, integrity, and trust to enter. True love doesn't demand that we surrender ourselves completely. It thrives when we honor ourselves and the space we deserve. I also realized that empowerment doesn't have to come from aggression. It can come from preparation, calm decisiveness, and the courage to stand firm. Watching my family scramble without understanding, I felt no desire for revenge, only the quiet satisfaction of reclaiming my dignity and showing that I would no longer be underestimated. As the days unfolded, Piper and I explored the harbor, walked along the beach, and shared simple meals together. Each moment reminded me that freedom and joy can be found in honesty, in choosing carefully who we allow close to our hearts, and in standing up for ourselves when necessary. If my story resonates with you, remember that your voice matters, that self-respect is never selfish, and that it's never too late to reclaim your own life. Take a moment to like, share, or leave a comment. Let someone know they are not alone in learning that boundaries can change everything.